films have become a part of our life today. Through films, we create our own experiences based on the story and the characters. Films bring joy, peace, anger, and sorrow. As films have become part of us, we need to know what kind of experience we undergo when we view them. We need to understand what kind of effect films create in us and how we can make such experiences fruitful and useful in our life. Father Gaston Roberge, a Jesuit priest, is an acclaimed film scholar who initiated, cultivated, and nurtured the film academia in India.
So I started to...
He is the founder of Chitrabani, a media center which has the only independent film library in Kolkata. Father Roberge has authored several books and contributed many articles to different publications on cinema. What is a film experience?
Everybody knows what a film is, but very few people can say what it is. It's an experience that one is used to, and we used to say, I'm going to see a movie, because we went to a theater. Now the movies have come to us. We go less and less to see the movie comes to us.
How can a movie be defined?
What is it? Well, it has various definitions depending on your approach. Your experience is an imaginary experience. Some people call it a dream. I feel that this is not the right term, because normally you have a dream when you sleep. Number two, in the dream there is no past or future time. Everything is happening in what you see in the dream. Whereas in the film, you have the power to present something as of the past or the future. What is it? From the point of view of the person who watches the film, it is an imaginary experience. That you imagine not what you see, because what you see. But from what you see, you imagine either a story or a place or whatever.
From where does the film experience arise?
Well, it goes in 3 steps. First, you have the filmmaker who imagines something, a scene, an action, a place, and so forth. And then he translates that into an audiovisual sequence of a place, of a scene, of an action. And of course, there can be a gap between what the filmmaker imagines and what is represented on the screen. But that cannot be helped much. Then somebody sees the audiovisual sequence on the screen, sees and hears it. And from that, one imagines what is happening. Because the film will put together some pictures, and sometimes you have to imagine what they represent. For instance, in space, if I look in that direction, then in your imagination you sort of create some space there. So the viewer imagines a sequence on the basis of the audiovisual sequence that he or she sees. So to that extent, if I imagine something, I am what I imagine, as because we say it is in me, but there is no inside myself where I can put some ideas or something. So it is myself who lives that imaginary experience. So to an extent, I am the film. as I see or remember it. As soon as I imagine, it's me. And if that is the case, then it becomes important to have as good as possible an understanding of that experience that is happening.
What effect do film experiences create in us?
A film remains dormant, as it were, in me, and maybe years after, for some reason, I remember it and imagine it again. And in the meantime, I may have understood what the film is saying or representing. So it is me who has evolved in the process.
What would be the right name for film?
The film is still more complicated or complex. For instance, we call it a film, but as you know, there is another name, movie. Personally, I prefer the term movie because whereas the term film existed when the cinema was created, the term movie was created to say what it was. And it was based on another expression, the motion pictures. And the term movie did not exist before that. So I prefer using that term because first it was created to name what they experience, but also because it is closer to the reality. A film is static, but a movie is moving. And I like to say a movie moves and moves you. The film, no. However, in addition to what I have said, if I come with a DVD and I say, here is a new film, where is the film? On the DVD, you have a recording of the audiovisual sequence that will appear on the screen, either on a screen on a wall or on the screen of a computer. So as can be seen, it's complex. And the DVD is a product of a business. The making of the film is also a business because the film will be shown to people who will pay to see the film. Plus, the film industry is supported by publicity. And in addition, the publicity, those who review the films in newspaper and so forth, contribute in building the stars that people enjoy seeing. So as can be seen, the experience of the film is quite complex, and it is submitted to all sorts of influences. But basically, I would say it's a personal experience to the point that one is the film that one imagines on the basis of the audiovisual sequence.
How should we watch a movie?
Is there anything like that? Of course. The filmmaker makes a film with a certain intention. In the case of the Indian filmmaker, he creates that audio-visual sequence to arouse your emotion. And this is done also in the non-Indian film to arouse the emotion. But the Indian filmmaker has a particular way of doing it and a particular aim in mind when he arouses the emotion. And that makes the Indian film different from the Western film in general.
What is the difference between an Indian and a Western film?
The difference is very sharp. However, we live at a time of globalization, and of course there is a tendency to have a convergence of styles and this. But I believe that basically the intention of the Indian filmmaker remains quite different from that of a Western filmmaker. And this being different doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It means they are different. And the human people are quite different one from the other. And this creates the wealth of human life. And hence it would be sad if the Indians felt that they should take the Western approach to the filmmaking and to the film viewing.
What is the difference in the arousal of emotions between an Indian film and a Western film?
What is different in the arousal of emotion is that the Western approach is more rational. The Indian approach is more based on the heart, more intuitive. And it's not that it is irrational, and it is not that the Western approach is not emotional, but there is a basic difference. When a Western film aims at arousing your emotion, it does it in a very rational manner, and mostly on the development of a story. And so the story must be well developed to tighten the experience. And the approach is almost medicinal. It's as if you have a purgation of the emotion that has been aroused in you. So it tighten, and then you relax at the end of the film.
How are emotions aroused in Indian films?
It's not the same in the Indian film. The Indian film will not rely so much on the story as on the appearance on the screen of what is shown. And the aim is not a kind of purgation of the emotion, but to arouse it to the highest possible level and leave you at that. So when you leave the cinema, you are strengthened by that, and most Indians who are used to it feel that they are good enough to tackle the social problems, some of which at times have been portrayed in the film but not discussed. It is just to reassure the film viewer that what he or she is doing relates to real life by describing some scenes of present problems.
What is a folk film?
What I call Indian films are films made in India on the line that I have described to arouse the emotion, but the film that will be seen by millions of Indian people. Most of the viewers see the film more than once, and this process may go on for years. When that occurs, I suggest to call the film a folk film. Folk means popular, but the scholars have, I would say, have created a lot of damage to the term popular, because it is assumed that what is popular is not worthy of attention from the higher class people. Well, so anyway, folk films, if you give me a film, say Sholay, that has been seen over the years by millions of people, I think if I ask you, have you seen the film Sholay? You are likely to say yes. Have you seen it more than once? More than once, and over a period of time. So it's a folk. Now, as a film scholar, if millions of people have appreciated the film, they may not have written about it or etc., who am I to criticize their experience? I think it makes no sense. And the folk film should be given more attention by the educational establishment.
How can a movie offer us an educative experience?
Say, for instance, a film like Sholay, to come again to it, is highly educational. Not in the sense that it teaches you things, but it shows characters or heroes, some that you would imitate or follow, others that you would refrain from. And this might bring one back to the Indian tradition of the great dramas, the Mahabharata, Ramayana. For instance, in the film Sholay, you have the opposition between Thakur Sahib and Gabbar Singh. And it's not impossible that some people will see Rama and Ravan in those two. Again, you have the widow, Radha, and Joy. They may Radha and Krishna, perhaps. Then, as an educational thing, we see two friends, and one gives his life to save the other one. That's beautiful. Then, as part of the story, at the beginning of the film, when two so-called criminals are brought in by the ex-police officer, Thakur Sahib, to take revenge on Gabbar Singh, Thakur Sahib speaks like that and says, they may be criminals, but they are still human beings. They may have defects, but they have qualities too. This statement has educational value. And while watching the film, especially experiencing kind of series of emotions, very sharp, these statements can have a deep effect in the audience. So again, I would say that more attention and friendly attention should be given to what I have called the folk movies. And then the deeper people will become rooted in their own cultural identity, the more they can open to other cultures, be enriched by the interaction, and remain what they are. But now, I can tell you, I can conclude with this experience of mine. I had a class of 45 students once, and my pedagogy is to start where the students are. So I asked them, have you seen by any chance the film Sholay? 44 out of 45 I've seen it, college students. And most more than once, again over a period of time. There is a little problem is that many see it on a small screen, and I hold that it makes a difference if you see it on a small screen, almost alone most of the time. It makes a difference with seeing it on a large screen in the presence of a crowd there. Whatever, I asked them, if you saw it several times, what is it in the film that prompted you to see it again? Then they started to give me a list of qualities of films that are normally associated with non-Indian films. A good story, good plot development, and this and that. Now, if you read the treatise of drama of India called Natya Shastra, better called Natya Veda, is the fifth Veda, the author more than once says that to do what leads to tightening the emotion, the development of the story must be flexible. he emphasizes that, because that is not what the Indian approach is based on. The story provides opportunities to project pictures that are emotionally laden.
Do educational institutions in India give importance to folk films?
It's a great pity that the educational system, because of the class mentality, is not giving sufficient attention to folk movies. Another one I would like to mention, and I am number 4, it is Three Idiots. I am such a fan of the film that I have volunteered to be number 4. And it's a very stiff critique of the educational system. To my knowledge, no educational institution has given it attention. My guess is that they are afraid and they prefer to ignore it.
The deeper we become rooted in our cultural identity, the more we are open to other cultures. We can get enriched by stories, characters, and values in the films that are relevant and useful to us. We can also get enriched through interacting with others about our movie experiences. This will help us to move forward while maintaining our identity.